Hannah Hamilton's Horrid Hullabaloo by Mary Ann Usler. This series is dedicated to all the wonderful Hewitt girls I was privileged to teach, with a special thanks to Savannah Rosen for her invaluable help. Chapter 11, Ghostly Texting. "Stop trying to scare her," Grace said. "Oh, there's plenty to be scared of," Andrew replied. And Hannah was scared. The thought of her soul disappearing into someone else's was horrifying. She supposed that some other ghost would spend an eternity running and hiding. But that wasn't going to be Hannah. "Do you know why Marla wants me so much?" Hannah directed the question at Andrew. "Who knows? Marla's mean that way. Sometimes she attaches herself to a spirit and she won't let go. Well, I do know. Sister Maria Constance told me." "Who?" "A smart nun." The way that Andrew screwed up his face told Hannah that he had little respect for authority. "Marla wants me," Hannah continued, "because I have powers she doesn't have." "You mean you can draw pretty dresses?" "No, not just that." Hannah wasn't about to deny that she could draw pretty dresses. "Because I know all about computers and cell phones." Well, I can see how helpful that's been so far." "So far," Hannah said thoughtfully, because she was already thinking of how she could change that. "Where are my drawings?" Summer demanded after Mrs. Danverglass handed the sketches to the class. "I didn't receive mine either," Beatrice said in a far more polite voice. "I don't know what happened to either one of them." Mrs. Danverglass muttered distractedly, completely overwhelmed. Deep purple shadows appeared under her eyes. White streaks showed on her blonde roots, and Hannah noticed there was a bald spot at the back of her scalp. "I came in here this morning. The library was upside down. One of the bookcases had fallen flat on the floor." "You're lucky it didn't fall on a student." Casey was looking at her own sketches and frowning. "You would have been sued." "The security guard, Mr. Penroy, said he didn't hear anything." "But somehow," Mrs. Danverglass began to whisper, "I suspect he's not telling the truth." "That's because he drinks," Mackenzie said. When she saw Mrs. Danverglass give her a quizzical look, she added quickly, "Well, that's what my mother says." "Why would someone keep trashing the library?" Casey asked. "It's not as though there's anything of value here." "My mother's diamond," Summer added. Mrs. Danverglass wasn't paying any attention at all. Instead, she was frantically searching through her desk, pulling the drawers out and fumbling through papers and pins and rubber bands and dirty forks. "When are you going to pass out the markers?" "Can I use watercolors?" "The markers you gave us yesterday were all dried out." "Please, girls," Mrs. Danverglass pulled on her already damaged hair. "Could you just sit down and be quiet?" "My mother's not paying $50,000 a year for me to sit down and be quiet." "I wouldn't be surprised if my mother's ring ended up in someone's ghetto apartment." Summer's bright blue eyes bored into Beatrice's. Beatrice lowered her own eyes. Andrew was rather appalled that Mrs. Danverglass didn't intervene. She was still looking at her desk. Hannah was also surprised that someone didn't interfere and stand up for Beatrice. Then Hannah realized she was someone, and she knew exactly what she was going to do. Hannah was beginning to understand what she could do and not do in the ghost world. She could appear wherever she wanted just by concentrating. She couldn't pick up things, but she could move them, so using a cell phone should be easy breezy. Maybe. Hannah waited till all the girls were busy with their sketches. Both Summer and Beatrice had to start over since their own had been tossed into the trash bin, thanks to Grace. Hannah noticed that Summer had taken a seat near Beatrice, scrutinizing her carefully as she attempted to copy Beatrice, who was sketching a mint green spring coat. With Summer sufficiently distracted, Hannah crouched down on the floor, noticing how filthy the rug was and how the dust lay thick on the floor around it. Well, what did it matter, since Hannah could hardly get dirty? Summer's cell phone was under her chair, peeking out from a bulky backpack. Hannah moved it ever so slightly, hoping it didn't need a password. It did, but it didn't matter. The apps flew on. Perhaps that was one of the privileges of being a ghost. She went immediately to messages. There was one from Casey asking her about a meeting after school to hang out and watch some Netflix. Hannah pressed the reply button. "I don't want to meet you. I'm feeling very guilty about stealing Beatrice's drawings. The truth is, I'm not very talented, and I want to win that contest whatever it takes. But does that mean stealing?" and then Hannah pressed the send button. Immediately she heard Casey's phone ping at the other end of the room. Casey looked down at her bag, picked up the phone, and read the message quickly, a bewildered, dubious look on her face. Hannah saw the little bubbles, and she assumed that Casey was writing back. But Casey had already dropped the phone into her bag, and yet the bubbles remained. Then Hannah read the message directed at her. Hannah, I can teach you how to get rid of Marla once and for all. Meet me tonight in the chapel at St. Hedwig's. Come alone, or it won't be safe. And it was signed, Mr. Kitchen Master.